Well, they rightly say the biggest part of digitalization is that it's changing the way we think. And with that, we have the change makers of the telecom industry with us today. Hello and welcome to India Telecom 2022. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all our esteemed speakers, guests, and viewers. In today's session, that is 5G, the super generation of felicitation digitalization. Now, I would like to proceed and introduce the prolific line of speakers that we have for today's session. Our first speaker is Mr. R.K. Pathak, Joint Secretary, Department of Telecommunications, Government of India. So, welcome to India Telecom.
Thank you. Hi all.
Thank you so much, sir, for being with us today. Shri R.K. Pathak has done his BE honors and MTech. He has more than 33 years of experience in different disciplines, including entrepreneurship, standardization and promotions, development of manufacturing of telecom equipment, and investment promotions. He is nodal officer for implementations of 5G technology. He is looking after work related to WTO, economic cooperation agreements, standardization, promotion of telecom exports, and telecom centers of excellence India. He has additional responsibility as Secretary TEPC and also Director TCOE India. Our next speaker for this session is Dr. Kumar N Sivarajan, Chief Technology Officer, Tejas Networks Limited.
Hello everyone.
Hello, sir. Welcome to India Telecom. Dr. Kumar Shivaranjan is the co-founder and chief technology officer at Tejas Networks and is responsible for setting the technology and product direction of the company. He has nearly 3 decades of experience in the fields of telecommunication. Dr. Kumar was the first chairperson of the Governing Council of India's Telecom Standards Organization, which is an organizational part of 3GPP, the global standards body responsible for formulating 5G standards. Dr. Kumar completed his BTech in electrical engineering from IIT Madras and holds an MS and PhD from Caltech, USA. Our next speaker for the session is Mr. Ramu T. Srinivasai, co-founder and director, Lekha Wireless Solutions Private Limited. So, welcome to India Telecom.
Namaste. Thank you, Amisha, for the introduction.
Thank you so much, sir. He comes with over 2 decades of experience in architecting, building, and managing business in wireless communication markets. He brings in understanding of business around setting up private networks, IPs, and solutions for cellular telecom market. At Leica Wireless, his roles include business development, driving innovation, product definition, planning, and strategizing execution. Before founding Leica, in the past, he has served in various roles in Cisco Systems, Navini Networks, and Encore Software. Mr. Ramu holds a Bachelor of Engineering in Instrumentation Electronics from Bangalore University. Next speaker for this session is Mr. Subhas Mondal, Head of R&D for 5G Products, HFCL. So welcome to India Telecom. Mr. Subhas leads the R&D efforts for 5G product development at HFCL as a vice president. In his role, Mr. Subhas works with academia, standards development organization, operation source community, and technology partners. Prior to joining HFCL, he served as the chief architect of Wipro's organization wide 5G initiative from 2018 to 2021. He has over 30 years of experience in telecom research and development. He's a passionate technologist and has developed a variety of solutions and frameworks in emerging technology areas such as 5G, SDN, NFV, Li-Fi, cybersecurity, and AI for network automation. He holds an engineering degree from IIT Kharagpur in electronics and electrical communication engineering. And last but not the least, our moderator for today's session, Mr. A.K. Mittal, ex-senior DDG and head Telecom Engineering Center. So, welcome to India Telecom.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Mittal did his graduation in electronics and communication from IIT Roorkee in 1976 and started his career in R&D at ITI Limited. Later, at the start of his inning in DOT, he worked in satellite communication, planning, installation, operations, NOCC for about 9 years. He also had the opportunity of working in various fields like operations on long distance MW and OFC networks, planning and operation of mobile networks, network management, licensing, regulation, standards, trainings. Once again, I would like to welcome all our esteemed speakers. Thank you so much for being a part of India Telecom. And I would like to hand over to Mr. Mittal for moderating this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Amisha, for introduction of the session. So the title of the today's session is the 5G, the super generation of facilitating digitization. So the title itself speaks what we are going to discuss today. And digitalization is a buzzword today, and there's a lot of talk around digitalization and what we saw during COVID, the power of digitalization that we survived, probably the one of the biggest contributors for survival of the mankind, maintaining connectivity and keeping the businesses on was the digital connectivity, and the wireless connectivity played the major role for the masses to remain connected. We experienced work from home, we did online shopping, we do telemedicine, and whatnot. Everything was digital, and the payment systems. There was a boom in digitalization, and new applications came, new service providers came. So digitalization is all around us. We are familiar with this, and this was happening. For quite some time. Digitalization was happening. It's something new, but it picked up momentum after the 4G services became available to the masses. Now, what we see is that 5G is coming. We are on the cusp of 5G rollout, and there are a lot of questions in the mind of people that how 5G is going to make a difference compared to 4G. What remains to be digitalized still, and what are the advantages we will get out of it? So, keeping this simple word, if we can also know that we are talking of Industry 4.0, we also talk of smart cities, we talk of verticals getting digitalized, we talk of verticals industries getting connected, having a common access point through a service layer. So there are a lot of technical things happening for ultimately giving services to the masses, and they may have a major economic impact. Will have, but how it will happen? What are the differentiating aspects, and where we are moving? For that, we have this expert panel with us today, and I propose to ask some penetrating questions so that the best of their knowledge comes out, and we make a you are the people are made aware that how the 5G is going to help facilitating digitalization and bringing a boom in digitalization. So my first question would be that with so much talk of digitalization happening, what we should look for in the next wave of digitalization, or say digitalization 2.0, if we can say so. So the questions are open for all the panelists. Anybody can pick up the question. Anybody can intervene. Yeah. So please. Yeah, Mr. Dr. Kumar.
Okay, so I think we have seen the effects of digitalization in the last 2 3 years, particularly due to COVID. Okay, so every interaction, this webinar, education, and so on, has happened remotely through broadband. I think in the next wave we can expect, two or three things. One is we can expect, ubiquitous broadband. That's the promise of 5G. So there are some segments of the country population which were left out. They didn't have proper access to broadband. I think 5G should fix that. And second, of course, the promise of 5G is also that it will not only connect people, it will connect things. You can get the Internet of Things, or massive machine type connectivity. I think that also will increase the scope of digitalization. So I'll stop there. I think those are the two main things we'll see. I'm sure other panelists will add to that.
Yes. So
Maybe I
anyone
will go.
else? Yeah, Mr. Mandal.
Yeah. Yeah, so the way I look at it, digital on.o, it has digitalized your end application. I would call it the front end of the digitalization has happened in digital on.o. And if you look at the back end of it, many of it are still manually operated. You place an order, warehouse operation, not all of that are digitalized today. So how do you really bring this, what is called the information technology and operational technology together to fulfill your online order? That perhaps is the next revolution that I am looking into. And that's where Industry 2.0 is going, to make sure that hyper automation is done not only in the front end in the form of web scale architecture, but extended in the business processes behind the scene as well. So I will stop there.
Yeah, you got a very good point. So, if there are no other interventions, then can we go to the next question? Yeah. So, this also now throws up the question that what role is 5G expected to play in various use cases in critical verticals to realize this vision of digitalization? As Mr. Mandal said, that at the back end processes and industries, this will happen. So, what role 5G is expected to play there? Yeah, Mr. Ram.
Yeah, as we know, I think 5G is offering a multiple beyond the cellular connection, which is currently addressed by 4G. So there are many features that are part of the 5G, which actually not only starts at application level, translates all the way up to the lower layers of the network in delivering the expected quality of services. So the 5G, to me, it looks very exciting, primarily because it's more application oriented, unlike the cellular network where we had very well defined way of using the network. But this 5G network will enable multiple application that can actually deliver a network which is customized for each application. So it'll be a big boon for the private enterprise type of network and enabling more applications.
Shall I go
Right.
next?
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Mandal.
Yeah. So the way I look at is 5G is like a highway. If you really look into previous generation, yes, it was a highway, but in the highway you had probably few restaurants and stuff like that. Now, if I look at 5G with the critical capabilities coming up, it essentially is enabling a set of applications and possibilities that earlier was not possible. So certain architectural tenet that has changed, for example, bringing in the computing and connectivity together with the concept of edge computing, with the concept of virtualization. It is like you are offering a five-star resort on the highway. You are providing a breakout exit point for your smart cities. You are enabling the factories right adjacent to the highway, where again the connectivity can percolate pervasively, like Dr. Kumar said, and then make sure that the machines are connected, the processes are automated. So goods get delivered from there right into the highway. So the connectivity with the compute, with the edge computing, it brings in a very powerful combination to achieve the digital 2.0 vision, where not only front end but the back end also is greatly automated. So with that I will pause.
Right. Yeah, Mr. Pathak.
Thank you, sir. I think I fully agree that once we say 5G, so 5G is basically connecting with compute. So that's its great strength. So we have not connected like seaport, you just say, or airport. So a lot of digitization will be there, and that will all facilitate for the economic gain of any country. So each country has to digitize for utilizing the potential of 5G. So this is my thinking, like that will be translating
for any country economic gain.
Yeah. So you said that for economic gains, 5G will make a major impact. But when we come to the verticals, as some examples were given by Mr. Mandal, so are there any other verticals which are critical and the use cases will be served immediately by 5G? Just a continuation of that what has been said already. Yeah, Dr. Kumar, please.
I think the first application of 5G will just be more capacity for broadband and different bands and so on, right? So it will that will be immediately what 5G will do. The next thing will be things, machine type of communication, sensors first, but that's an easy application. Maybe self-driving vehicles, drones, controlling them. That's a harder application, and I think that you know V2X kind of application, which will also require lower latency. I think that's the next interesting application on the horizon, but it may take 3 4 years to get all the technology in place. So I think we can expect immediately, higher capacity on the broadband, though probably lesser coverage because of just the higher frequency bands. But in a few years, we can expect some kind of a revolution. I hope combination of uh, machine communication and low latency.
Yeah, maybe I will just add on top of what Dr. Kumar said, if that is okay, Mittalji.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I guess, like Dr. Kumar said, it will all start with the high bandwidth applications. So 4G is already providing high bandwidth, but it is not pervasive. How do you really make sure that every part of the country is covered with this broadband, right? That is going to be one of the key factors. So once those broadbands are available, many other applications today, healthcare in rural area, for example, it could drastically improve when the ubiquitous connectivity is available everywhere. Now, coming to this low latency, I see that bringing the cyber physical system to have that operational technology as an integral part into this automation fabric, that I think is going to be quite a bit. Entertainment industry, bringing the augmented reality, virtual reality to the next level, the so-called metaverse, right? As it is emerging, how do you really bringing this experience of the virtual reality at a consumer level? So I guess these are some of the areas that will happen. Yes, low latency, of course, there are a lot of advancements are happening into the technology areas, and hopefully whatever Dr. Kumar said will emerge. But at the key, a lot of cyber physical system enabling technology also will have to come together to realize these use cases. Yeah, I'll pause there.
Sir, sir, for India, I feel
Yes,
that
please.
it's very important that we utilize 5G for the education, health, because and even that is true for most of the countries because that we have seen in this pandemic time that how our children are we are doing work from home. So this is the right time that we use this technology for the benefit of common man and education and health. These are the first applications I'm sure that going to drive this. Subsequently, it will be others also like for India, a country like India, it will be something like platooning of vehicles will be there, such that we can utilize our roads properly. And definitely, smart city applications. In fact, Department of Telecommunication is presently working on use cases with about more than 20 departments. So now they have started realizing that yes, I think they independently were doing certain things like precision agriculture, but the moment we both join together, means Department of Agriculture in a country and the Department of Telecommunication and Communication, then they can realize the true potential because then both will bring their ecosystem together. So there is lot of opportunity in use cases in logistic in health, agriculture, uh, even smart cities and industry 4.0, I think we all are aware of. So each sector has specific use cases, and it will take 2 to 3 times for development as per the country's need, each country needs. So I think we have to now divert our attention for the development of use cases. In case of India, sir, we have done the first use case in fintech, because we feel that fintech is very much important for a country like India. So we have set up the first use case in IDRBT Hyderabad, that is an RBI institution. Yeah, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Pathak. So we gathered information that how this characteristics of 5G, like higher data rate capability, low latency capability, and massive connectivity, they are going to be put into various applications. And we also hear that, as Mr. Mandal said, that the technologies along with, the end technologies along with 5G are going to make a difference. And I also can think of an example that if robotics plus 5G combined, can do a lot of robotic functions. Or for example, in telemedicine, the remote surgery. So 5G plus the technology which can, create that surgery. So that is where we conclude from this discussion point that there are a lot of applications which 5G will enable because of this special characteristics what have come into 5G compared to 4G. So now, having seen these as a different kind of applications and use cases in different sectors, definitely it has to have impact on economy. There must be economic gains. So can we have some examples of how economic gains can happen because of 5G connectivity and its use cases? Yeah, Dr. Kumar, please.
I think any new technology enables, new industries, right? So, for example, 4G, we can see so many things have been enabled. You got from the applications, right? Google Maps, even deliveries, tracking. So similarly, I think 5G will enable new applications that will then drive economic gains. Let me just give one simple example. If you have a ubiquitous 5G network connected to sensors, so maybe hospitals can start offering a service where they will monitor your health. You'll have sensors on you and they will monitor your health all the time, 24/7, and through some combination of, it's not some nurse watching the screen, but through some combination of artificial intelligence. But that ubiquitous connectivity to sensors and coupled with applications at the back end that take advantage of it can revolutionize health monitoring. Right now, one of the biggest risks is that you don't know you have a problem, or you have a problem at a place and you can't get timely help. So that's just one example. I think so many other applications can emerge. Your imagination is the limit, but the underlying technology of 5G can enable that.
Okay, can I go next?
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah. So I would break down the cost in the question into two parts. How does it bring the economic benefit to the telcos who are consuming this new technology to offer the services to the industry and the end users? And the second part is the ancillary business enabled by 5G. What benefit does it bring to that? Right. So if I look into the first part, there has been a lot of economic analysis that has been done on the cost of delivering a bit per second per hertz, and it has been found that 5G technology is going to have a cheaper cost per bit per second per hertz, right? That is because of the increased spectral efficiency using a lot of technological innovation that has come up with the next version of the MIMO, bringing in the cloud native architecture, having the hyper scaling capabilities, virtualization, disaggregating the network, so that the commodity effect comes in being, all of that together. And the cloud scale also is enabling the compute in the very fabric of the networking infrastructure. So essentially, if you really look at the overall end-to-end perspective in the new technology introduction, as well as for the operational expenses, you are able to bring in the same concept of the IT and OT together. So today, in a base station, let's say certain fault has occurred. Can I autonomously detect that? And for doing that certain sensory function, telemetry function that needs to be done without dispatching people, you actually can automatically do that because of introduction of this automation infused with a combination of the edge computing and at the back end, the cloud network infrastructure doing the back end analytics of it. So that is, so operational expenses can be simplified a great deal. And this is as far as the telco life is concerned. And if you really look into the enabling factor, because of this capability 5G is offering and the new set of back-end applications that will come up, the automotive industry, the transportation industry, the healthcare industry, the agricultural segment, all of that are going to be beneficiary in the form of the increased amount of automation that was unthinkable at the earlier point in time. So that is how I would say that both the core technology consumers like telcos as well as the associated business across the entire sphere of the lifespan, I think this economic benefit is going to span.
Yeah. So yeah, Mr. Ramu, please.
Yeah, so yeah, I would like to continue from what Subhash Mandal mentioned. It's primarily the operators will see they will be the first customers who will see the benefit of the 5G network. And some of the challenges today faced by the operators are one is backhaul network today is something which is going to get revolutionized with 5G, because we are speaking of both FR1 and FR2 frequencies, which can actually really offer a very high bandwidth. Today, the cellular network, the users are well covered with 4G, but in terms of offering these bandwidths to the end users, the backhaul becomes an important aspect. That is one area where the 5G can bring some changes in terms of the offering a lot of bandwidth wirelessly, so the operations becomes easier. Second, what we have not seen in 4G is the IoT. It has not taken off well. A lot of changes have been brought into the standard, the 4G standard, to enable IoT. But we see that with the onset of 5G, probably this is one area where we see a huge difference, where the technology adoption for IoT network will be better, and we will see a lot of connected devices coming on the 5G network. So, thank you.
Okay. So, so what we hear that there are benefits because of the technology, 5G technology itself becoming more efficient in terms of spectrum efficiency and other aspects, and also the way the IoT services will improve because of the massive machine type communication, the capabilities which have been built for the IoT communication. And the other side is the ancillary industries which will come up from on all sides, and the verticals which will be affected. So there will be a economic gain multiplier factor, and economic gains are also once they are there, the social gains are there because the sectors become more efficient, right? So that is what we understand from what we discussed on this. So while we were discussing about the 5G network, the application side, network side, and the economic side of this. So on the 5G network side, as Mr. Mandal said, because of the spectral efficiency and cloud and other things, the cost is coming down. Is there any other measure which is also happening? For example, disaggregation of RAN or other open systems which are being considered, like the software implementation on open source. So are they also going to help in reducing the network side cost or application side cost?
Yeah, so maybe I'll go.
Yes, Mr. Mandal.
Yeah, so I guess definitely the if you look into the innovation out of the box. So if you look at today a car from Honda, let us say, all the parts that I expected to come from Honda. But tomorrow, if I can commoditize certain things, of course, there are certain amount of commoditization like tires and all, but the core parts are not really replaceable today. So it becomes like an organ transplant. If a heart failure happens today, you have to do a lot of maths to make sure that the heart replacement can be done. Can I really bring in the commodity effect and the economic scale? So in that case, I guess the competitiveness, and then it opens the innovation to new players. So for example, we at HFCL have started the open run related development, and then if we rightfully do the best in class, then we have a place without doing the entire gamut of everything that needs to be done, because then there is an enormous amount of R&D resources that are required. So I guess it is 5G also is enabling the new ecosystem in the form of bringing in one component that can be plugged in to make the overall integrated network because of this disaggregation. So it is giving rise to the new innovative players. This definitely will induce innovation, and every innovation brings in revolution, reducing the economic benefit. So that's how I would look at it.
Yeah, yeah, Dr. Kumar, please.
Yeah, so I
And
think the main requirement is to decrease the cost per gigabyte, right? Because we need more gigabytes, per day. We thought getting 1 GB per day was good, but it's not good enough in the era of Zoom and whatever, video conferencing. So I think 5G will do that in two, three ways. First, main thing is that you need more cells, but 5G will create small cells that will require less infrastructure in terms of tower height and so on. It will reduce power, which will reduce the cost of the node B, and you will also get more spectrum, maybe 60, 80, 100 megahertz, where you're getting 20 megahertz today. So I think all of that will enable more bandwidth at lower cost per bit. I think that is the first and foremost way in which 5G reduces cost per gigabyte. The second one, what Mr. Mandal also said, if you can standardize at least the interfaces. See, Open RAN tries to do a lot of things, to commoditize the hardware and put it on a general purpose compute. But even if you don't go so far, if you just standardize the interface between the radio and the BBU, or in Open RAN terminology, RU and CUDU, that itself can create a separate market for radios, which is kind of what is happening in optical. In optical, because of the standard interface, you can get pluggable optics. There's what is called an MSA, in industry standard interface. So I think if the standards bodies can effectively decouple the core and the baseband unit or CUDU and the radio unit or RRH, and allow these three to happen through different industry players, I think that's the first step that can go a long way towards reducing the equipment cost. And then we can take other steps later. And core, I think running on the cloud is a very good idea, because it will enable you to not dedicate that kind of computing infrastructure for that. I'll stop here.
Mr. Ramu, you had raised your hand.
Yeah. So it's the disaggregation, as Dr. Kumar's mentioned. Say it's allowing multiple players to come in and enable certain innovation in each block, because the disaggregation primarily depends on the open interfaces which are defined. So this is allowing a new players to come and bring in innovation. So if we compare the current scenario of the way things are happening at 4G, so mostly the entire end-to-end network is delivered by one single OEM, and so it depends on the kind of priority of each operators and things like that. So what I see from disaggregated network, there are two things. One is the cost benefit. Subhash Mandal has already covered it. The second part is this is enabling multiple new use cases to come up in parallel, which is the primary benefit what we will see. Unlike the earlier scenario where 4G was mostly seen in the cellular network, so we will see a lot of activities around multiple different use cases coming up parallelly, and these use cases are no more dependent on one or two companies across the globe. It will enable opportunity for multiple OEMs. So that is what will be the difference what we see in the coming days.
So, what you mean to say is that because multiple companies will be available, so there will be competition in the market, and definitely it will help, achieve the scale and the price. That also will impact. And apart from the new use cases and the overall cost coming down. And open source is also being talked about, that over and above the open disaggregation at the hardware level, the open source based implementation, do we see any, uh, you know, will it see the light of the day that it can be, the networks can be implemented on open source, the equipment can be implemented on open source? Yeah, Dr. Kumar, please.
Yeah. So as a a vendor of equipment, it's natural to view open source as a threat. We don't want open source replacing our whole business and taking it away. But I think Linux is a good example. There were proprietary Unix systems. And I used to work for IBM at the time. IBM had AIX. I'm sure others had the same thing. But over time, Linux has replaced and has done an extremely good job. It is now all pervasive. And but there's still a big business to be built. Red Hat built whatever $39 billion business on open source and got acquired by IBM. So I think open source is something which has certainly has benefits. The main issue is that who is going to stand by? Is an operator going to risk his network on open source when he's not guaranteeing guaranteed support and so on? But I think if those problems are solved by innovative companies, then open source can certainly be a factor, because you're sure what's there. There's nothing hidden. There's no Trojan horse. All the security worries are far less simply because it's open. But support, bug fixing, and whose neck to catch is the biggest issue for operators who will need to adopt it. But if those problems are solved by somebody, open source has a promising future.
Maybe I'll just add on.
Yeah.
So if you look at the way I look at it, when the COVID happened, ran out of oxygen cylinders. So, and we ran all around to figure out how do we really supply oxygen cylinder. Now, the way I look at is open source is like water and air. It is available free, and it's a good thing. But you need to really it is when you are not in a crisis, you are perfectly fine, you can breathe easy. So academic experimental stuff you can do. But like Dr. Kumar said, that there has been cases, it also has gone into the carrier grade deployment scenarios. But even in that case, somebody has to be there to support. So the way I am looking at it is that open source for fundamental building blocks, it is here to stay. But the differentiation would be coming with a supported application, which still will come from the specialist. So the domain takes a lot of time to build that knowledge. A general purpose platform layer, that probably is not too difficult. So for example, network level, we are getting a network operating system with the SD and NFV. There are many platforms that has come up. It probably will mature to the same level as the Linux at some point in time. And on top of that, the analytic function, the way all the intelligence is moving, real-time control loop, near real-time control loop, all of that innovation, somebody will have to support and make money out of it. Without that, how does this ecosystem sustain? And that is where I think the harmonization of the open source and the differentiated solution will come together to solve the industry problem.
So I think we can, what we understand is that open source has a lot of potential, but there are a lot of challenges also which may be solved over time, or at least for the commercial in the deployment of commercial networks, the issues have to be resolved. The support is required to be guaranteed, and all those things. So, okay, let us see. Some people have started working on open source, and the time will tell how it will actually be supported all through and how it progresses. So so now the another important thing which we see in 5G is private networks, possibility of providing private networks to enterprises and other applications. So how do we see that this private network is evolving? And as far as India use cases, India is concerned, what we need is actually the spectrum. Some countries have already allotted a spectrum for private networks out of the band which is available even for the commercial services. So there are issues that how the private network will really going to help. Number one, technology wise, whether spectrum, how spectrum issues can be solved. That means what are the alternatives, if not the mainstream spectrum, what other things are available. And third is that whether if this is not solved, then it is only the private operator, the operators who run the cellular networks, they only will be the provider of private networks as a service to the people. That is the only solution. So these three are linked. So anybody who can take this question.
So this is a tough one.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, sorry, Dr. Kumar, please go ahead. I think you have raised your hand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dr. Kumar. I
So I think so. First, we'll take for granted that you need private 5G networks. I think let's take that as
yes.
an axiom. Then, how do you get spectrum? I think that's your main question. I think operators allowing their spectrum to be used on a, let's say, a campus, while keeping the traffic for that enterprise within that campus and not going out for security reasons and cost reasons, which is what that company wants. And then only internet traffic or whatever needs to go out goes out. I think that is a model that some countries are trying. So operators lease the use of their spectrum. The enterprise builds its own infrastructure, and traffic that leaves only goes out, right? And then so you don't have to auction one more chunk of spectrum. That is one option, which will, operators will certainly like that. The second option is you have some spectrum which is allotted on a, enterprise to an enterprise for use within its enterprise, and then the next door enterprise can get the same spectrum. So it's a specific chunk of spectrum that is reserved. That's probably what the enterprises would like, so that they don't have to go to the operator. But either model will work. I think either model will work to enable private 5G networks.
Yeah. Any other comments?
Yeah, so maybe I will just add. So I
Yeah.
guess it all will boil down to the business case. So I would say two diverse scenarios. One scenario is the enterprise cases in a dense urban context. Something like in Bangalore city, if you would like to offer a private campus of a large enterprise, be it a manufacturing house or be it in an IT company, you could adopt the model like Dr. Kumar said. There are questions like, if spectrum is leased by one particular telco to that enterprises, the adjacencies and doing the frequency planning to make sure that the adjacent public cells versus the private cell, they are harmonized. So that is one technical aspect to look into. How do you really make sure that if there are multiple operators adjacent to the campus, how do you really contain that? So the other option could be kind of giving a slice of the network, and then that slice could be built by the enterprises itself. But the public services also are offered, and then it probably becomes the reverse economic model, because enterprises build this network. Any public network that roams into this enterprise network, of course, there could be a different network attribute, and the entitlement. Using the network slicing, you could provide that, but actually the operator pays the enterprises for letting the public traffic ride on the this private segment, right? That could be one model that could be done. I think the bigger question would be for the underserved areas. For example, a large mine far away from the city, where the telco doesn't really have any incentive to build a network. Does it make sense? Will it be making a economic sense if the telco, let's say, has taken a countrywide license, a very very subsidized license, sub licensing of that spectrum for the mine operator to build the network? Then the next question would be, will the mine operator will have the know-how how to really build that network? Will it justify to build its own network? So, and that is where I think the autonomy of the 5G network, one-click deployment, one-click operation, that level of maturity has to come for private 5G to proliferate to the non-networking, non-IT people who say that I take this as a magic box, I unpack it, I power it on, and it magically starts operating. I think that is the level of autonomy 5G is expected to deliver. for this private 5G in cases of that nature to proliferate. And I think the technology holds the potential. I don't see any reason why it cannot be achieved. Matter of few more years, I think we will be there.
So you mean 5G, private 5G as a commodity will be offered by the operators? That is the potential we have. That and of course the remaining challenges what we were mentioned, they will also be, they are expected to be solved over a period of time. The spectrum issue, as the many parts of the world are moving with the spectrum, dedicated spectrum allocation, I think that pressure will always be there, and maybe over a period of time something comes out of that also. Let us hope. Any other comments on this, Sir Ramu? Yeah, Sir
I
Ramu,
think,
please.
yeah, based on our experience at Leica with private network, what we have seen is the network plays a very important role in automation or operation of an industry. So, and this cannot be like this is the lifeline of business, or sometimes it is mission critical. So today, if we have to look at a wireless connectivity as an option, so we have Wi-Fi as one of the choice, right? Which is actually not giving the expected QoS, not giving the expected coverage. So definitely, it's not a choice, but it is continuing to serve certain segment of the society. But when it comes to the serious businesses or industries, so they need a connectivity which is as reliable as a regular carrier grade operator network. That is point number one. Point number two, it is to be customized to their requirement, because starting from the way we deploy the network, all the way we integrate to the applications and offer services, so they need actually certain attention, certain modification to enable the industry. So this private network is very very important for enabling industrialization in the country, and allocating spectrum is definitely a challenge which we are all of us are working towards solving it. So it's like private networks can definitely enable many economic, bring in a lot of economic benefits and make our industry more efficient. So that's what probably I see as a what is things coming in.
Yeah, so that means there will be always be a, a challenge between a customization requirement of a private network, which may be dynamic in nature, which the private network owner will like to solve himself without the operator's invention. That one, and the private network being offered by the operator through slicing and giving a service to the uh, user industry. So I think that maybe a mixed solution will happen. So let us see how it progresses, but it definitely all agree that it's a major game changer for the automation of industry. So now the other part for the economy, what we see is the manufacturing. So we talk of technology, we talk of applications, but the things will start happening when the things are manufactured. And when I refer to manufacturing, I talk of manufacturing in India. So in the 4G domain, I think when technology came already, we didn't have a end-to-end system manufacturer in India. There were people who have done different components, and now 5G is coming. But we also see something happening on the 4G front, though there may not be end-to-end one single supplier today, but there is an industry collaboration which is happening for supply of 4G equipment. And we know, and we have Dr. Kumar from Tejas here. Tejas is understood to be a part of that arrangement. So, what is the biggest takeaway from these efforts of becoming integrating the different systems? And can the success we achieved or we are going to achieve in this will be like we had in UPI, Aadhaar, and CoWIN, the kind of applications they developed and revolutionized the fintech services? So, can this be replicated? Yeah, Dr. Kumar, please.
Look
And
at
then
this
Mr. Bhatt.
panel. You can look at this panel. The three industry participants are trying to build, indigenous infrastructure. Okay, and even the two participants who couldn't make it, I think, are in the same field. So clearly, the Indian industry sees the opportunity for infrastructure players, 4G and 5G and small cells and so on, to happen from India. I think, and I guess especially given the global scenario where there are very few players, and the last 20 years, the Chinese players came up in the last 10 years. Samsung came up from Korea. I think we all see that there is an opportunity now to build Indian infrastructure players, and that's what we are going for. And there is some encouragement from the government as well.
Mr. Pathak?
Thank you, sir. Once we say manufacturing, then I think government has placed lot of thrust on starting from the R&D itself. So in the recent even budget, 5% of USO, that is Universal Service Obligation Fund, has been earmarked for R&D in 5G technology. So I think that gives the momentum to this 5G. And then we launch a production link incentive scheme, that is 1.6 billion incentive to industry, in which there are 31 companies in telecom networking products. Out of 16, out of 31, 16 are from MSME sector. So they will be basically manufacturing most of the requirement of CPE. You call them access controllers, modems, routers. So now we'll be manufacturing a complete ecosystem in India itself, and same time we have largest MNCs also. They are also in India. So Jabil is there, Foxconn is there, Sanmina is there, Rising Star. So it means now India is a manufacturing hub, and government has now announced design-led manufacturing. It means let us start the design itself in India, have IPR in India, and then manufacture in India. And that will be making Indian global champion. So our purpose is that manufacture for India, manufacture for the globe. And I think that's why I invite even our participants from other countries also to join India in achieving this objective. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, good to see the government's actions in last couple of years. The way it has promoted manufacturing is gaining appreciation everywhere. So, any other comment on this point? If I have missed seeing somebody's raised hand, yeah, Mr. Mandal.
Yeah, so I guess the pandemic has taught us a lot of lessons. The global supply chain has been disrupted. Even today, we are struggling to get certain hardware in time for completing my R&D. So I guess the government impetus to make the manufacturing a successful venture in India, both for the local technology creators and the global technology suppliers, I think it's a great move. And the technology self-sufficiency to address adversities of this nature, I think there is a definite need for us to be technology self-sufficient. And I think India has been creating technology for the world, but for many different companies. So I guess we have the capability. 5G is all about the domain and computers coming together, and a lot of programming skill exists in the country. So I guess leveraging this, we have tremendous opportunity in hand for creating technology locally. So, and also if you look at the country has a lot of integration capabilities. We have been doing a lot of that for many years, and I think this time is right with the government policies and tremendous willingness from the people here to create local technology. I think it's a great opportunity for all of us.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mandal. So, Mr. Ramu, you have any inputs on this?
Yeah, primarily, I think, sir, we are in as both the speakers mentioned, we are in a great time in terms of a government that is supporting the uh, uh, indigenization. Then we have challenges coming from natural calamity, and also the industry, which was actually if you see the panelists here, and also there are many other colleagues who have been in telecom industry for last 10 11 years. They have built a lot of technology and products which are like waiting for to get adapted. So all these things have happened at the same time. So if I see the next 5 years, your question whether will we be able to replicate what we have done in Aadhaar or other places, definitely I would see that India will be self-sufficient in next to 3 to 4 years, where all the technology and the products are going to be built, designed, developed, and manufactured in India. So we should be able to see these days coming soon.
Yeah. So everyone is of the same opinion that the way we are progressing, we have a lot of potential, and all of us are moving with a very positive mindset, and we see the offshoots already on the ground. So with this, I think one more question which should also not miss our minds is about artificial intelligence. Of course, we talked of cost and network, but probably we should not miss the point of artificial intelligence in the applications on 5G. So, on the network side, on what do we see how AI will manage the 5G networks, and also make it more more efficient, and deliver other benefits. Dr. Kumar, please.
Yeah, so I think we turn to AI when we are not smart enough to solve the problems. I think that happens in a lot of areas, like face recognition is one. AI does a beautiful job, will recognize your face. There are only 6 billion faces, it's nothing for computing. So I think similarly, when you have a million base stations, you don't know what to do, what problems are coming up, how to do this. I think we've run out of capacity to model and sort of give deterministic solutions to many problems, large scale problems. So we trust machines will learn and somehow figure out how to do the job. And I think those things will be useful in because the 5G networks are now so large, right? Million base stations, small networks. You don't know what problems are coming where. So I think machine learning, which is synonymous with artificial intelligence, will be key to running these networks efficiently, reliably, diagnosing problems in advance, and so on. So that is one aspect, and it's being such kind of AI is being applied to a lot of areas. So it will definitely happen for 5G for sort of efficient operation of the network. But the so that's one. There is also you can look at that 5G will enable AI because there will be large networks of sensors and so on, which will actually get facilitated by 5G, and that actually will help AI do a better job. But that's like an application level of 5G. So it's synergistic. AI helps 5G, 5G helps AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
So, yeah, Mr. Mandal, please.
Yeah, so I maybe I'll just add. So Dr. Kumar said rightly that there are a lot of deterministic stuff done in the very very efficient way for resource optimization in resource hungry computing requirement into the embedded system. Now the question that is coming up is uh, by the very nature of the 5G, it is enabling data collection much more effectively to enable AI to proliferate, and that will go into the application layer. But if you look into the 5G network, the way the architecture is changing, it is becoming disaggregated. The layers are getting decomposed. So, in a closed loop control system spanning across this disaggregated distributed fabric, there is an opportunity that is opening up whereby the cross layer optimization, deterministic versus learning based method. So there is a saying that when the science stops, the philosophy begins, right? So the philosophy of AI, can we really bring in and seemingly very difficult modeling problems, can we leave it to an AI model and say that learn and somehow figure out how this optimization can be done? I think a lot of research focus has happened into many areas, like for example dynamic beam forming, the large number of beam table, the code book becomes exhaustive mechanism, and on the real time channel state feedback you want to act upon it. The question is, if you want to apply that, the amount of data set you need, the training you need, can you really create that? So there are many open questions there. How do you really create a model? And an execution time, it becomes less resource intensive than the deterministic algorithms. I think there is a lot of research potential there to apply into the real the fabric of the network. How do you really apply AI to solve many cross domain problem? I think that's where a lot of research is required, and that's happening.
So,
Yeah.
sir, AI and ML, is enabling. It's a concept which is applied to multiple industry. So definitely, it is something which is will be applicable for telecom. And the way the AI/ML algorithms are playing the role, there are easy problems to solve. There are difficult problems to solve. I mean, there are something which is well known today. Operation of a network is something which is a challenge, and there are experts who have built experience over time how to manage this network in a certain scenario. They make certain changes in the configuration. So as you know, like a network has thousands of configuration. You have to play around with it to address a specific problem or specific situation, and this is something which is built over time. So the first set of changes that are going to happen is replace these things which are like taken a shape of algorithms in the people mind, will translate as a software which will run on top of the network, which will actually reduce the human dependency. Second, yes, this is actually what is it stopping today to apply AI and ML to the 4G network? Definitely, it is possible, but as Subhash Mandal mentioned, the the very nature of 5G, the way it is built, the construct of the 5G, the softwareization. So a lot of things are can be controlled because somewhere it is also getting centralized at a central place where we can play around with the configuration with coming of RTR and near RTR kind of concepts. So what we see is like the architecture is getting made such a way that it can enable AML algorithms to come in and transform the network drastically. So we will see that this transformation in the coming years. But the first goal would be to set up the network, make it functional, and address the known problem, that is operation of the network problem. That's where AML will target. But subsequently, we will see a lot of innovation and new things, which is called by AML. That's what I think.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Ramu. So we are just very close to our end of this session. But before ending, I was just put one question about 5G. I think that is the one technology which emanated from TSDSI, the SDO of India, and is also a part of the ITUR standard, ITUR recommendation on IMT 2020. So why it was so important for India, or continues to be important for India? Yeah, Mr. Patel. Yeah, please.
Uh, Thank you, sir. So once you say why it's important for India, because India has some specific challenges. That is about 70% of populations in the rural India. And for connecting those places, we need some technology which is affordable. And I think this is true for a number of countries in Africa, in Latin America, even in advanced countries, also developed countries also. So that's why from India, we develop a technology which serve uh, those part of country where otherwise the conventional whatever has been developed over the years is not able to serve. So this 5G which increases the distance between the base stations in any frequencies, whether that is FR1 or FR2, is very important for all of us. And with the help of global community, I think we have been able to merge this technology in 3GPP. And now for entire world, there is only one standard in release 17, and that is the 5G of 3GPP. So I think, but I think there is a lot of lessons that when you want to develop a technology and go for some international adoption, so there is a lot of learning from 5G IE that if you want to have your IPRs, and that's true for any country, not only for India, then there is a systematic way that first you have to work with the global standard organization, sit with them, gain the experience, and then only that can be incorporated. So we have lot of learnings from 5GI, and now that is part of a global ecosystem, and would like to thank our partners in this journey, and that is all global community. along with the Indian participants, that they have accepted the contribution from India in the global standards. So that is the learnings, and that is very much important not only for India but for entire world. Yes.
Yeah. So, any other comment? Okay. So, I just also want to add to what Mr. Patak said that when we were on the floor in ITU, when the 5G was being discussed, we got support from lot of countries who are actually looking for uh, enhanced coverage solution for 5G. So now that global expectation, in fact, has now become part of the 3GPP specification by merging of the 5GI requirements into 3GPP. So that is where the gains have been for development of this technology to meet the requirement of rural areas, especially for global population. So I think with this, we are now actually slightly over time. And so we had a very engaging discussion, very informative and knowledgeable comments from our expert panelists. We saw how the technology is going to move in future, uh, bringing economic and social benefits to India and the world, and also that how digitalization impetus will be further strengthened when 5GI is rolled out. We saw that how different sectors are looking for deployment of this technology. They are looking for integration and more efficient services, and also the bringing down the cost. And also we saw that how our expert commentators, expert panels said that how the network side of the 5G technology itself is transforming itself into a way that it becomes more cost competitive, more manageable, and creates more potential for ancillary industries to develop. For example, cloud industry, for example, other industries which can co-work with the technology to deliver the results. So all that combined, the digitalization, what we have now and what we will see the next round of digitalization, phase two, that is going to be the thing to watch in coming years. And we hope that whatever has we have heard from our experts here is gives us a proper understanding, a full understanding, of course, about how 5G is actually going to make a difference in our lives, in business matter, in social life, and in our economic well-being. So, with that, I thank all the expert panelists for giving their views and enlightening all of us with the various aspects of the 5G technology and how digitalization will actually be growing under the influence of this technology. And also thank the audience for being with us through this session and hearing all of us, hearing the experts' comments. Thank you very much. Now I hand over to Amisha for final closing of the session.
Thank you so much, sir. First and foremost, my sincere gratitude to all the esteemed speakers. Special thanks to Mr. A.K. Mittal for moderating the session so incredibly. After hearing all the enlightening insights, we are sure that all the viewers, especially the aspirants of telecom industry, have gained immense value. Thanks everyone for joining. Stay connected for the next session.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.